Welcome to A Perfect Touch. I'm Jeanette. Inspired by an historical or vintage-attired Holiday Barbie, and creating the fashion in a wearable size has become a tradition. This will be my 5th year, and the Hallmark Special Edition Yuletide Romance Barbie is my inspiration. She wears a Victorian-era costume in hues of green with gold accents. She carries a beautiful coordinating reticule for her precious things. This past summer, I had the fortunate experience to travel with my friend Amy and to shop from her personal fabric stash. The most beautiful fabrics came home with me, including a green moire brocade and an emerald green silk velvet. There isn't enough of the velvet to sew the entire jacket or even the sleeves, but with some creative designing, I will have enough for accents on the jacket and skirt and what I hope will be a beautiful coordinating reticule. Most of my reticule patterns are of an average size, which can, of course, be enlarged, but I've had a pattern from Vintage Pattern Lending Library for a 1912 beaded handbag. The pattern is available in downloadable format on Etsy. I'll supply a link. It is a pattern originally available in the Ladies' Home Journal and is of a very generous size. I had purchased my pattern several years ago, and it was in paper format. The Holiday Barbie jacket and skirt will be embellished with the silk velvet and a gold trim. After asking other customers what kind of trim they might use, it was unanimous that soutache would be perfect. An Etsy seller offered 3 shades of gold in a size that would work for this project, and with the sale and free shipping, I purchased all I would need in classic gold. The soutache arrives, and I'm very pleased with the color, the quality, and the curvability. Is that really a word? And as I'm still in the planning stages of this project, it is amazing when these beautiful gold and green tassels show up in a customer's de-stash group. Victorians loved their trims and tassels and whatnots, and the more, the merrier. Using the original pattern, a traced copy, and a quilter's template, I settle on a soutache design for my reticule. 4 pieces cut for the lining from the moire brocade, 4 pieces cut from the silk velvet, and a lightweight sew-in interfacing basted at all edges. Everything is ready to begin the soutache application. Using an awl to create small holes, I transfer my pattern to the interfacing on each of the 4 velvet panels. I tried several different colors of marker to test which will be the most visible on the dark velvet fabric. With the soutache pattern transferred to the interfacing, I basted through the interfacing in velvet using a white thread. This gives me a very clear mark to follow when applying the soutache, can be removed if necessary, and holds the layers together while applying the soutache. Time for the soutache. After a few trials, I found a method that worked for me. The first step was to bring the needle from the back to the front, along the basted line, and then through the center of the soutache. I took a very small stitch forward in the center of the soutache, and then back through the pattern line through the velvet. Then a longer stitch is taken at the back of the velvet, and back up through the velvet and the pattern line. Now the thread can be pulled through the stitch in the soutache and the velvet, bringing the soutache close to the velvet, but not so tight as to crush the nap. Then I repeat by bringing the needle up through the center of the soutache at the point where the needle and thread come through the velvet. To follow a tighter curve, I would gently pre-form the soutache following the pattern line, and then pin the soutache in place while I stitch the soutache to the velvet at the pattern line. It took some time to hand sew the soutache, being mindful of the velvet nap, but I'm pleased with my attempt at this kind of embellishment. I'm still loving the tassels with the embellished velvet panels. The 4 velvet panels are sewn right sides together along the side and lower edges, leaving openings as indicated on the pattern in all 4 seams for the drawstrings. The stitching line for the drawstring casing is marked on the right side of each lining panel. Then the lining panels are sewn right sides together along the side and lower edges, leaving an opening in one lower edge to turn the finished reticule right side out. Now the sewn lining and velvet panels can be positioned right sides together and the 4 points sewn at the upper edge. I sewed from the peak to within 1/2 inch of each seam at the lowest point to allow for any minor adjustment after turning inside out. The seam allowances at the peaks are trimmed to allow for a more precise point, and then the velvet layer pulled through the opening in the lining. The opening in the lining can now be sewn closed and the lining placed inside the reticule. The upper edge receives some final adjustments, is pinned, and slip-stitched closed. The velvet and lining are smoothed together and pinned at the drawstring casing stitch lines and machine-stitched completely around the reticule. The tassels are sewn to each of the 4 corners with 2 tassels sewn to create a longer center tassel. I was hoping to use a 6mm twist cord for the drawstrings, but the color appeared more brown than gold. My other option was a gold chain. The color and shine contrasted beautifully with the velvet and the soutache. Since this is a 4-sided reticule with 4 seams, I've decided to thread the chain through the opening so that it will be inside the casing on the front and back panels, but will lay on the velvet on both sides. One chain is threaded from one direction, completely around the reticule, and a second from the opposite direction. Each chain is then attached to itself at the ends, and when pulled, gathers the reticule completely closed. The velvet color is so luscious, and photographs don't really show how elegant this reticule truly is. So here are photographs and video, if you watch the companion video, in different lighting, both indoors and outdoors. Thank you for sharing the reticule creation with me, and I look forward to sharing the full Holiday Barbie costume with you very soon.